Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I'm super psyched about my guest. I'm covering a topic today that I've never covered before on this show. Super helpful if you're middle-aged and, your body's changing. Make sure you do not hit stop on the whatever you're listening on. Okay, gosh, there's so many options now with technology advancing. So wherever you're listening, on your phone, on your computer, I don't know where else you'd be listening, on your iPad. So anyway, whatever, Facebook, check it out. This is a cool topic and you need it. And if you don't need it, a girlfriend needs it. And so when you listen, you can share it with other people. Let's spread the word about this important topic of pelvic health with other sisters. I am excited to tell you that the TedX talk that I did that went live a year ago is over 1 million views and counting. And it's a powerful message for people who struggle with food and weight and are tired of dieting and feel like they're the only ones who can't do it. Like they always binge and they can't lose the weight and keep it off. Hey, I was there at 50 pounds overweight. So I share on my TEDx talk about one of my darkest secrets, which is garbage eating. And you can check it out by going to YouTube and typing in Tricia Nelson, emotional eating. And please share that as well. So, I also want to say that if you don't know if emotional eating applies to you, if you know you struggle with food and weight, but you're like, am I an emotional eater? I have a quiz that will help you determine that. And not everybody is, but you take the quiz and find out if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between. It's a free quiz on my website. That's a great first step for you. If you're wanting to do something, if you're tired of like mucking around and not getting results, definitely take the quiz as your first step, and then we'll give you some suggestions on what you can do to get started on your path of healing, because you don't have to muddle around anymore. You don't have to, keep gaining and losing, gaining and losing, gaining and binging and trying to ameliorate your effects of binging and exercise and then over exercise and then under exercise. And good God, the circus, right? The circus around trying to lose weight when we're not going deeper and getting the deeper message of why we gained weight in the first place. That's what we do here at Heal Your Hunger. So tap into that message, listen, we've got lots of shows. We have over 400 shows. Tap in, listen to the different shows, listen to the message about what's really going on, because that's the question you want to ask when you feel like I've got to have chocolate. It's not about the chocolate, girlfriend. So what's really going on? And the more you listen, the more you hang out, the more you read my book, join my program, get support, be with other women on a healing journey, you're going to know what's going on. You're going to be able to identify it, pinpoint it, and heal it on the spot with a little help from God. Okay. So that's what I want for you, but start with the quiz on my website. Okay, on with this amazing podcast interview with Alyce Adams, who's an RN and known as the Kegel Queen. Okay, and she's one of the most sought after Kegel exercise experts around the world. And she helps women who suffer with vaginal prolapse or urinary incontinence to avoid dangerous surgery and regain health and control of their bodies down there. Okay. And I learned a lot in this interview. It was really good for me. I'm like, whoa, didn't know that. So this was super great for me. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did interviewing Alyce. And you can, for just minutes a day, improve your health, your pelvic health, and avoid all kinds of problems that can happen if you don't pay attention to this important issue. So I'm excited for this interview. Let's jump in. Welcome, Alyce. So happy to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you. I've never really offered anything on this topic before. I've never had a guest talk about Kegels. And am I saying that right? Kegels?
Either way
Okay.
is acceptable.
Okay. So yeah, and as I was just telling you, I'm 55 and I'm just approaching menopause. I had a regular period up until 55. So I'm
Wow.
just things are getting funky. And so, which is fine, I'm ready. So, but I don't want any issues. I want no health issues having to do with aging. Okay. Just putting that out there to the universe. No, like just pass me by when it comes to issues, with aging. So including, female stuff. And one of the ways I can ensure that happens is have amazing women like you on my podcast to talk about how to prevent pain and issues. And this is, pelvic health. I hear it a lot. It's really important. I have two older sisters, I hear them talking about stuff. And so I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. What happens to our pelvis and pelvic health as we age, typically passing me by, just reminder to the universe.
Right, right. So one of the major things that happens as a result of aging is that our connective tissue changes. This happens, it's the same thing as we get wrinkles in our skin because our connective tissue loses elasticity. So when that happens in the pelvis, that can have real consequences. And for a lot of women, these issues begin with childbearing before menopause. Obviously, childbearing is happening before menopause, but the link is connective tissue stress. And after menopause, with less estrogen, the connective tissue becomes more brittle and it's harder to repair. And when you add, then on top of that, when you add sitting in chairs, extra body weight, diet that is not as high in collagen and antioxidants as it could be, stresses like exercising the wrong way. There are all kinds of things that can sort of gang up on your poor pelvis to create issues. And those issues, what I specialize in, of course, is Kegel exercises, which are exercises for the pelvic floor muscles. And that's this bowl of muscle in the pelvis between your pubic bone and your tailbone, basically. That's a huge oversimplification, but
Okay.
the bowl of muscle that is the support, there's your pelvic organs, your bladder, your uterus, or your rectum, they're all supported by the pelvic floor from
Mhm.
behind and below, and they're supported from the sides and the top by ligaments.
Okay, so pelvic floor is the bottom. So for those who are listening, she's holding up kind of a bone structure, of a pelvis. And so when you look down, like let's say we didn't have, from our belly button up, it was gone, and we look
Yep,
down and there's a hole, a big
yep,
hole where
yep.
lots of organs are, but under that hole towards the bottom, is that the floor?
Yes, but it's important to think of we have this, that's one of the things about the pelvic health is that we have so much mystery about it. It's not like your hand or your biceps that you can experience them more easily, you can see them, you can tell what's happening. Your pelvic floor is this big mystery. And one of the things that's really important to know about the pelvic floor is that it's not the way most of us imagine. So if you think about your pelvis, you've got your hip bones that we think of like when you put your hands on your hips. At the top of your pelvis, in the front is your pubic bone, right? If you follow your fingers down from your belly button until you hit bone, there's your pubic bone. And we need to understand that the pubic bone is what's on the bottom of the pelvis.
Okay.
When you're standing, your pubic bone is what's facing the floor.
Okay.
It's not your pelvic floor that's facing the floor. And that's
Okay.
something I talk to my members about is how it shouldn't be called the pelvic floor at all. But I don't want to confuse people by using a term that's not the anatomically correct term. But the pubic bone is what's facing the floor. Your tailbone and the back of the pelvis, you can feel your tailbone, right? You know
Yep.
right where that is.
Yep.
Your pelvic floor is this bowl of muscle that's between those two things. So it's the pelvic floor is not facing the floor when you're standing. It's
Okay.
not facing the wall behind you the way your dog's pelvic floor is.
Right.
It's halfway. It's facing the corner between the floor and the wall behind you
Okay.
when you're standing. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that bowl of muscle is part of the support for your pelvic organs, and the ligaments that connect them to each other and to the bony structures are the other part of the support for your pelvic organs. So that's part of it, is that you can lose elasticity and you can lose support for those organs, and then you end up with pelvic organ prolapse, where the organs are not where they're supposed to be anymore.
Okay.
You can end up with the muscles malfunctioning so that you have incontinence, that if you don't, like any other muscle in the body, if it's not getting what it needs, it's not going to work correctly, and you can end up with incontinence, because that's one of the things those pelvic floor muscles do, is they control when you go pee and poo and when you don't. So
Okay.
if you're not working right, that's one of the things that can go wrong. And those are two big ones. Also, you can have problems with sex because a lot of our sexual function revolves around the pelvic floor.
Mm.
And the pelvic floor also is what stabilizes the base of the spine. It's connected to the tailbone. It's connected to the sacrum, which is that kind of diamond-shaped bone right above the tailbone,
Yep.
below your last vertebra. So if your pelvic floor isn't functioning right, you can have prolapse, you can have incontinence, you can have problems with sex, and you can have back pain or back issues or alignment problems that go like dominoes all the way up. So it's a really, really, really important part of our body. And those issues with pelvic health, especially pelvic organ prolapse, can have an enormous emotional impact on women.
And prolapse isn't what causes all the other issues. Prolapse is its own thing.
They can occur independently, yes. So you may have incontinence and no prolapse. You can have prolapse without incontinence. They
Okay.
operate separately, but they are often found together.
Got it. Okay. And so if a woman is having an issue, is this a woman thing for one
Yes,
thing?
this
Okay.
is a woman thing. Men have a pelvic floor too, of course, but because their anatomy is really different, and because they never have babies and they don't have the same kind of hormonal changes at menopause that we have, it's a totally different thing for them. And they may have structural issues like back issues, that the pelvic floor is still stabilizing the base of the spine for them. And men who struggle with incontinence can benefit from pelvic floor exercise.
Okay.
It's not the same. And pelvic organ prolapse is a uniquely female issue.
Got it. And then if somebody has no issues, but they're listening to this and they're kind of like, I sure don't want to get those issues, can they do preventative measures?
Yes. So one of the most important things with prevention is to avoid the wrong kind of stress against the pelvic floor.
Okay.
So part of that, I know that your audience is women who are struggling with their weight,
Mm-hmm.
and extra body weight creates pressure against the pelvic floor. When
Yeah.
you have when you have pressure from the inside of the body against the pelvic floor, this can be a problem. So think coughing, vomiting. These are things that create a really strong short-term pressure. Sometimes you can't prevent those things. Obviously, no one's choosing to have a cough. But when we are, let's say, doing the wrong kind of exercise, like if you're into doing sit-ups, crunches, those are absolutely terrible for your pelvic floor. They create really, really intense pressure from the inside of the body that like blows out your pelvic floor.
Huh.
And I've heard from many women, things aren't the same since I started going to the gym.
Huh.
So high impact exercise and exercises that create a lot of abdominal pressure, like any form of crunch or double leg lifts. Those can be really, really stressful for the pelvic floor. So that's
Okay.
something.
Got it. So, I want to circle back on the sex thing. So, so what kind of problems happen in sex if you have pelvic issues?
So one of the things that goes on with issues is that the muscles, there are a couple major contributions that these muscles make to your sex life. One is that these muscles, those of you who can see this image, the muscles really are right there around your genitals. They surround the vagina. They give the vagina its structure. And when you have an orgasm, a lot of the sensation you have is from these muscles contracting. So if the muscles become weak and aren't functioning right, you can have less sensation with orgasm. You can have less sensation with penetrative sex, such as intercourse. You can have worse circulation because when the pelvic floor muscles are strong and thick and well nourished with good circulation, that's better circulation to your whole sexual anatomy, and good circulation is critical for sexual function. And one of the things about the pelvic floor is that there are little tiny muscles that are actually connected to your clitoris, and they are called the bulbocavernosus muscles, and they literally attach to the clitoris and can move the clitoris if you intentionally move the muscles. So having control over these muscles and having the muscles function can really add a lot of sensation to intercourse. And another piece is these muscles give the vagina its structure. The vagina has a lining that is very flexible, but the part of the vagina that's like structural, right? The firm part of the vagina is these muscles. And there's a gap, natural gap in the muscle called the urogenital hiatus that allows the vagina and urethra to pass through. And when these muscles are not well cared for and well toned, that gap can become really large. And that, if it's large and doesn't have good tone, you and a male partner are going to have less sensation with intercourse.
All right. Well, you totally got my attention on that one.
Yeah,
I don't want to lose anything in sex.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yes, having just started my sexual revolution at age 54 or something. So, no, I have a partner I really like and I want to have a lot of sex with. So,
Good.
So regarding that, because this show is all about me after all, what like if I started doing these Kegel exercises, would it help me again to prevent this prolapse that you're talking about?
It's a good idea. Yeah. I mean, so the thing with prolapse is that it's part your pelvic floor and it's partly the ligaments. So you really need to attend to both of those things.
Okay.
And pelvic floor health, the muscle health, has to do with using those muscles, right? So Kegels are great, obviously, for that. You also need to watch out for alignment problems and stressors there. So let's say you're in the habit of sitting in chairs, as most of us are. Mm-hmm. If you're sitting in a chair that is squishy, you're compressing your tailbone. If you, and your listeners right now, if you reach around, can you feel the tip of your tailbone? And is there room to touch it without having to dig into your chair? If you have to dig into your chair to feel your tailbone isn't free. And if you're constantly kind of sitting on your tailbone, either in a squishy chair or like leaning back in a chair, you're compressing the pelvic floor. And when a muscle, any muscle, doesn't have length, it can't work as well. So that's a really big deal too, is sitting like I'm sitting right now on the front edge of a hard chair on
Okay.
my sit bones. So my tailbone is free.
Okay.
So these daily habits, like the way we sit, are really important. So taking care of your pelvic floor means, yes, exercise. It means sitting properly. It means proper body alignment while you're standing and walking around. It means exercising safely. It means having a healthy body weight
Mhm.
and protecting yourself from pelvic organ prolapse, which creates either if it's the uterus that prolapses, that means the uterus is literally falling into the vagina, so the cervix is low. If it's the bladder, you have a bulge in the front wall of the vagina. If it's the rectum, it's a bulge in the back wall of the vagina. This is really it can put a damper on sex also. Now, anyone who already has prolapse, you need to know that you can absolutely still have sex. You can still have great sex with prolapse. You just need to not be afraid. You need to get a few facts about that. But with prolapse, part of it's the pelvic floor and part of it is the health of the support from the ligaments. So really paying attention to your lifestyle that's affecting your ligaments, and that's everything that affects inflammation, your quality of sleep, your emotional life, and it's everything in your diet. You know, the collagen production is a particularly complicated process, and so it's more susceptible to interruption than some other things. And so really attending to minimizing inflammation, eating collagen in your diet, eating lots and lots of antioxidants, not eating sugar. These are all really important things for connective tissue health.
Yeah, because I teach in my Quit Sugar Challenge that in my Quit Sugar Solution program that the sugar, I mean, I'm always talking about the face, you know, the vanity of, losing the connective tissue in your skin. But yeah, down in your pelvis as well. Now I'm gonna add that to my presentation. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a big deal.
yeah, and once you have prolapse, you can't reverse it. Is that what I'm getting?
No, not necessarily. That's not true, is what I
Okay.
mean. You may or may not be able to reduce it. I mean, in my program, the typical response with prolapse is that it's less. The yucky sensations are less, or it's down less far, or it's down less often because they go kind of down and in and out of position. So yes, women see improvement in my program, absolutely. For prolapse to just go away, that's less common. I have heard a couple women say that, but that's not typical. And then there are some women who say, I did everything perfectly in your program and nothing changed. But that's also unusual. Typically, women see improvement. And there are the other thing that I really want women to know is that if you have prolapse, your doctor is probably going to tell you that your only option is surgery. And that's really not the case. There are other things you can do if you don't want surgery that are not just give up and live with it. So that includes Kegels, that includes wearing a support like a pessary, the silicone thing that sits at the top of the vagina, like kind of like a contraceptive diaphragm, but different. And there's other stuff you can do as well. But it's really important that women know that 95% of the time, doctors won't offer you anything other than surgery, and that's not reality.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for adding that. That's so important because it
Really
doesn't sound
important.
like fun surgery. So
No, and there's an especially high rate of failure and especially high rate of complications and an
mm,
especially high rate of repeat surgery. So,
wow. Oh, bummer.
yeah.
So somebody's, is it pain that gets somebody's attention? Is that usually how they start looking into this?
With prolapse, it's not usually painful, but it's the bulge itself.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how do they know? Do they automatically know they have the bulge, or how does that show up?
If it's severe, they know about it. I mean, it can be severe prolapse is a bulge that's actually protruding from the vagina. Women say,
Okay.
like, I feel like I'm sitting on an orange.
Okay.
If it's mild, you might have it and not realize. And this is something that really ticks me off is often doctors will notice if you're having a pap smear or whatever, they'll notice that you have a mild prolapse and never bother mentioning it because in their world, it's not bad enough for surgery yet, so there's nothing to do.
Ooh, that's bad medicine.
Oh boy, is it ever? They don't know and they don't have time, and they're, for many reasons, they're not going to sit down and take 30 minutes to explain to somebody all about how to exercise safely and alignment and collagen and everything else. So
Wow.
they just wait for it to get bad enough for surgery, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for bringing this awareness to all of us listening. So can we talk about Kegels real quick? What are Kegel exercises? How do you do the perfect Kegel? And so forth. Can you kind of
Yeah,
give us a little thumbnail and expand on
absolutely. Absolutely. And before we talk about Kegels, Tricia, I want you to know that nobody talks about prolapse, even though in the United States, 1 in 5 women will have surgery to treat prolapse or incontinence by the time she's 80 years old. One in
that? 1 in 5.
five, 1 in 5.
Wow.
But we don't talk about it, so it's this big mystery, and women just, it's appalling. So we need to talk about it, and I really, really appreciate you bringing this to your audience because women need to know.
100%.
So Kegel exercises are exercises for the pelvic floor, and the pelvic floor is a little bit unusual, right? Because it's not like your biceps where you can see what's happening, you know what they do. It's like this kind of mysterious hidden thing down there. And you have to, the thing about Kegels is that in order for them to be effective, they need to be done in a very specific way. And one paragraph in Cosmo isn't enough, and one page on the Mayo Clinic website isn't enough, and also has some inaccuracies in it. So let's do one perfect Kegel together right now. So I like to call this the movie star exercise. So close your eyes and imagine your favorite movie star, or it could be anyone else you'd really like to impress. But my go-to is a 40-year-old Denzel Washington. So
Okay.
imagine your movie star
Got it.
you really, really want to impress, and you're having dinner with this person. It's quiet. You're in a dark, secluded corner of a quiet restaurant, and Denzel or whoever is really opening up to you. He's telling you a deeply personal story and like really bearing his soul. And all of a sudden, you have the most overpowering urge to pee and pass gas at the same time. So hold it back. Hold it back with everything you've got because you don't want to mess up this moment, and let it go. Really fully relax and let that go. So that's one good Kegel. And the elements of that are, for one thing, people say stop your stream of urine, right? Which is something you got to be careful and not do too often, like never, ever more than once a week, by the way. So it's not just stopping your pee muscles, it's these big, big muscles in the back that are called the levator ani muscles. That means lifts the anus. So you got to engage the muscles around your anus as well. That's one key. Another key is relaxing fully. You don't just contract, you got to really fully consciously relax those muscles, because if all you do is contract, then you're going to get tight. And that is, a tight muscle is not a happy, well-functioning muscle, and it can hurt. You also need to do a really, really strong contraction. If you do a little light duty contraction, that is not going to get you the results that you want. And also you need to hold the contraction, these kind of pulsing little contractions that some people recommend for the pelvic floor, like, 1, 2, 1, 2. Those are not going to get you results. You need to do a strong, sustained contraction and really, really hold it before you let it go.
Awesome. I mean, and that's so doable anytime.
Yes, you can. That's another thing that I like to bust myths about is a lot of women look, they're like struggling, so they go on the internet and somebody wants to sell them some kind of device. They have to take their pants off. Maybe they have to plug it in. It's like this whole production.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do Kegels with your pants on any place. And it needs to be, there are a lot more details. Like I said, one paragraph isn't enough. My how-to Kegel course is 2 hours. And then there's a year of follow-up, because you need interaction, you need help, you need support, you need full information in order to really do them properly.
Got it. Yeah, I bought a thing once, some device that you insert, but then I couldn't pee. Like
no.
Yeah, and like, this is totally weird. Like, I don't like this.
Like you used it and then later you couldn't pee, or it was a thing you
Yeah, I had to take it out in order to pee. Like, it was weird. I didn't like it.
It was a thing you were supposed to wear like all the time?
No, I'm sure I did it wrong.
Oh gosh. Well,
I don't know, but I'm like, this is for the birds, but it might have been operator error, honestly, but
well, buying those things is really the first mistake, and you're in good company. A lot of women buy them and then they're just gathering dust after the first day.
Yep, exactly. So tell us about how women work with you.
So my program is the Kegel Queen program. I've been running it since 2009.
Wow.
And yep, I'm very proud of the results that women get. And it's essentially a home study program. You go at your own pace, but I'm there when you need me. So we do a monthly live Q&A. We do live interactive support online. Did I just say live? The Q&A is live. The interactive support online is not live. It's asynchronous. So you type in a question, I answer it in writing. We do that on our members' website. So like I said, there's a 2-hour how-to Kegel course, and then there's all kinds of other information. Like on the Q&A, a lot of the time we're talking about pessary, those supports that you can wear for prolapse. We're talking about connective tissue health. We're talking about the emotional side of having these issues. We're talking about incontinence tips, all kinds of stuff, vaginal lining health, past menopause, that's a whole thing. How to interact with your doctor. There's like all kinds of additional topics that I have a whole library of articles about and that we talk about. And I have 10 months out of the year, we do a support and sharing meeting that's a live Zoom just for women to connect with other women who are dealing with the same issues. So like we have an incontinence one, there's one about sex. And that's just a time, it's not Q&A, it's a time for women to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful thing, because it can feel very, very isolating to have
totally. Well, at Heal Your Hunger, we know all about that, and we come out of the shadows and we connect with each other, because community is kind of the glue that makes everything stick.
Yeah, it's the first healing step, is to know you're not alone.
Absolutely. Well, this has been amazing, Alyce. I'm super intrigued, and I'm glad that you came on, and I'm glad that you're so good at explaining things and making it very digestible. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tricia.
Yeah. And you have a free report, which we're going to put in the show notes, 5 things you didn't know about your vagina after 50. So thank you for that. That's super cool. And yeah, I'm so glad we connected, and I love the message. And ladies, please share this with your girlfriends, because it sounds like we can get healthier without going into, some terrible rabbit hole with pain or with, complications or with surgery. So I love that we can support each other in a healthier path to total health and especially pelvic health. So Alyce, thanks so much. I have one more question for you,
Yes.
which I ask all my guests, and take a moment to find whatever seems like the right answer for you. But this being the Heal Your Hunger show, what is your deepest hunger?
My deepest hunger is to feel really confident that at the end of my life, when I'm looking back, that I have left everything on the field, that I've left it all on the stage, on the field, whatever your metaphor is, that I really gave everything that I had to give. And that's conversely kind of my worst fear, is like, what am I holding back? What am I not doing?
Yeah.
But that's really what, to me, would be the mark of having lived well.
Amazing. I love that. Well, you live with passion and you serve so many women. So thank you for that. And thank you for being on the Heal Your Hunger show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you on the next show.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.